Welcome back, everyone. This is beautiful Becca, and welcome to, well, it's not really Thursdays through the page. I didn't record anything for November or December for a Thursday. I went through a lot of, stuff. I'm just going to put it that way. Today is December 31st. This is Sunday, the last day of 2023, and we're all hoping and praying that 2024 will be a better year, and I hope to get clarification for everything that happened the year before, which I'll go into that at a separate time. I did want to go over a few more of the books that changed my life. I know I've already went over The Art of the Hunchback and Bradbury's Fahrenheit 451. Today I just wrote down a few more that I was thinking about, books that have changed my life, maybe not in a great big way, but more significant. Let's go to Lessons in Chemistry. How it changed my life. It told me to never compromise nor settle for the way things are currently. It's never too late to learn a new skill or degree. And I've been seriously thinking about, well, until I can start earning a regular income, I have been looking into possibly doing something in opera or possibly going for a master's in creative writing, perhaps. Thomas Kincaid's Light Posts for a Living. How it changed? It didn't really change my life yet, but I'm looking more into it. It's that for me, it's to allow the unexpected moments that change course as light posts and take it as a divine sign. Fall. This is an entire book of prose by Professor Brad Lighthouser, and I really hope one day to interview him. I am not sure what happened to the letter I sent him as to whether or not he got my latest interview inquiry, but I am waiting. For this one, to challenge myself to read novels in prose, and prose paints pictures in words, very much like poetry. Now, I did read this book that I didn't write down in the in this reading journal, but it's called Amen by Rabbi Karen Kader. And it made me think about the question, because I did go over this in the interview that I had with her. I did re-edit the video. I haven't heard back yet, but I wanted to get her approval. So hopefully I will get that posted sometime this coming week after the 1st. So, but in a section of the book, it was talking about the question. The word quest is within question, and if I ever get back into teaching, I'd reteach how I instruct students to understand the quest of the questions and to go on a quest in the text that they are reading. Romance, I'll need to get to that one later. Okay, so I'm not sure if I went over God Whispers. I may have that one. Let's go to the last books I read for the reading challenge. So, The Vacationers by Emma Straub. So the book task was a book about a vacation, and I read this from November 4th to the 24th. I had a hard time getting into this one. I just wasn't really concentrating, and I was going through a bunch of personal issues. I give the cover a 3. Well, first of all, the title, I was told that it has like a How Mary Met Sally kind of a feel to it. I'm not sure. But the cover has 2 people swimming and floating and relaxing in what appears to be a great pool or a lake or even the sea. I chose it because it meets one of the book tasks. Now, there are a couple of books that she did write. I don't remember the second one she wrote, but I know it's Laura Lamont's Life in Pictures, I want to say. And then there's this new one that's coming out. I think it's called Lady Gaga. I may have to go back and look at the title. But I am going to look into it. I did write to the publicist to see if I could possibly interview her, so we will see. The feelings this book evoked in me, so for me, I wrote, it took a long time, but further on, based on the gay couple, I empathize with couples who are waiting to adopt children or waiting from an adoption agency to see if they are suitable. Because there was a great quote about the two of them waiting for the approval of an adoption agency. So here's a few of these passages here. The human heart is a complex organ at any age. Teenagers were no less impervious to true heartbreak, and just then they were to getting hit by buses. If anything, the odds were dramatically higher. There was nothing in life harder or more important than agreeing every morning to stay the course, to go back to your forgotten self of so many years ago, and to make the same decisions. Marriages like ships needed steering and steady hands at the wheel. So those are just a few of the passages that I really loved. But there's another greater quote that I wrote down in my journal that's even a lot more complex. Did reading this book change me in any way? Not really, except that when it comes to vacation, it's meant to be relaxing, not to delve into personal problems. And Straub brings us to this reality. So she's taking a look at this family, an extended family, and people that they've met, and everyone has their secrets, everyone has their problems, everyone has their personal issues. And we think about how all of that somehow erupts like a volcano during vacation, when vacation is meant to get away from it all. That's what happened to my parents and I. We just decided I had reserved a room at the Wine Valley Inn in Solvang for a girlfriend and I, and she backed out, and I said, you know what? I'm going to treat my parents, because we didn't really go on vacation this year. It was just a chance for us to get away from it all, and we enjoyed it. And I treated them to this vacation. So that to me was a wonderful thing that happened this year. Who would I like to share this book with? I chose my friend Laura. She's another literary sister of mine. What would I hope for them to take away from it? To apply complex relationship. To apply complex relations, and it's all right to allow a third-person omniscient to speak as the mind for each character. That's what I got from this book. Would I recommend it? I'm kind of yes and no, but I want to say the writing is great, so it is a worthwhile read. The writing style was, for me, I honestly want to say it's sort of like somewhere in the middle between loved it and just okay. Certain parts, the messages were very, very clear, and I really loved it. And the reading experience, like I said, I wish I had invested in the story, and I really didn't, but maybe for another one of the stories. Here's one. Another task off the reading challenge. A book about a forbidden romance. Now, I did have another book title on there called Dark Notes, but I found this book because of the clips that I saw in the program, and I believe it's either on Netflix or something, but I saw these clips on YouTube, and it's Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I read this in about 4 or 5 days, from November 24th to the 28th. The cover, I would give it a 4. The title is the reason I chose it, and I watched clips of the show. And I remember watching these clips. I'm looking at it going, is that humanly possible that a royal from the royal family could actually fall in love with the son of a president, or even a daughter of the president of the United States? So I want to say that Casey McQuiston's book is about escapist fiction, but it also has like a contemporary feel of things that could potentially happen. Why I chose this book? Well, I never really read a story about queer relationships or anything about the LGBTQ except for Beyond Magenta, and another book that kind of hinted at it, but it didn't really go further into it. But why I chose it, it's like no other book I've ever read. Romance of two stubborn men, each bound by tradition, and they each end up breaking those traditions. The feelings this book evoked in me, I want to say that it's like having hope for the future of two houses of great power, molded by country and social traditions, can eventually change so as to break traditional boundaries into acceptance, like this is the way it is, or this is how it should be, and they're not bound by legacy. They're not bound, as what the mother says, props of a legacy, and they are there to break them. So I had a few good passages in this book. There were a few humorous ones too, but this is the reason why this is I want to say this is like a rated R kind of a video, but that's up to you to decide. So, favorite passage. Bisexuality is truly a rich and complex tapestry. Someone else's choice doesn't change who you are. I think Luke is proof that it doesn't matter where you come from or who your family is. You can always be great if you're true to yourself. Every person who bears a legacy makes the choice of a partner with whom they will share it. So these passages are not too R rated, but there were some passages that I did write in my journal that are considered R rated passages. Because most of the book was absolutely humorous, but it did take a surprisingly serious turn. Did reading this book change me in any way? No, but it made me think long and hard about tradition, about how tradition that molds social expectations. If the houses, like two houses of power, attempt to break or change, then the social expectations that we've been brought up on, most people will take that on the offensive and say, no, we don't want change. We want things to stay the way they are, or it's the houses of power that refuse to change themselves. Who would I like to share this book with? Well, this is kind of taking a real big leap here, but I would share this book with the royal family for those who have not read the book, because of what happened. I think, what was it, like this year alone? Everything with Harry and Meghan, they've been stripped of their, as far as I know, they've been stripped of their titles. But let me just read to you what I wrote here. Like, what happened to Meghan and Harry, unsure about the issue, but they broke tradition and now they're not accepted by the royal family and stripped of their titles. They're still family by blood, but it's almost as if they were cut off because they made those decisions. That's kind of like what nearly happened in this story alone, but the author makes the choice to say, here's hope for the future. I definitely would recommend it, and I loved everything about it, the writing style, the message, and the reading experience. Another PopSugar Reading Challenge book off the list, book based on a popular movie. So, in 1989, I was 7 years old when The Little Mermaid premiered in theaters, and that was it. I was hooked. I was ecstatic. I was transfixed and mesmerized by everything I saw from that movie. And so, as I want to say, of the last maybe decade or 20 years, there's been a lot of fairy tale retellings, and this book is one of them. It's called Part of Your World by Liz Braswell, and I read this in 4 days from December 21st to the 25th. I gave the cover a 5 because it's an extremely incredible cover. First of all, you have the song title, and then you have the silhouette of Ursula in the background as if she had taken over the Sea Kingdom. And then it's followed by the question on the title, what if Ariel had never defeated Ursula? So this gives us an entirely different perspective of the story. Why I chose this book? Well, first of all, you have the song, Part of Your World. There is no woman today that does not know the lyrics to the song. And if you were brought up in my generation in the 1980s and you don't know the lyrics, you have not seen this great movie. There's been a trend of fairy story retellings as of late. Now, she has written other Twisted Tale books for Disney Press. And again, I also wrote to her. I am hoping to interview her soon. And I hope she will respond. But no, I haven't read any other books by this author. The feelings this book evoked in me, no feelings really, but I empathized with Ariel's character, sacrifice and consequences for based on her on her actions based on their, again, there's that word legacy, and exploring operatic nodes for description. So, to make a long story short, in Part of Your World, Ariel has not only lost her father in the trade for his life so that she could be free, but in doing so, Ariel's voice is lost. She doesn't speak. She signs. And the Mad Prince Eric is now an operatic composer, and Vanessa, using Ariel's voice, and she's Ursula in disguise, has now taken over the dry world, or Earth. And then you have these different kingdoms like Terulia and Bretlandian, and they're not sure what is going on, but there's been a big change over the kingdom and the city of Atlantica, which is under the sea. And Ariel is the queen of Atlantica. And her generation, like Sebastian and Flounder and Scuttle, they now have new generations of their own. Old characters that come back, like Carlotta and Grimsby, and a few new ones as well. They come about in this really unique story. And this story, I feel, is meant for adults. There were certain passages in there that I was really surprised, like Mother of God. Are you kidding? When you see Mother of God, you're like, excuse me? That's not really it's not really aimed at children. So I want to say that these books are more geared towards adults who still love the fairy story retelling. So favorite passages. There were mermaids in this other world. Magic didn't make everything simpler. Crossing the thresholds of worlds was no minor thing. Observation is all well and good, but only if it leads to a thoughtful plan of action. Real life, as Eric stated, was a lot more tense and a lot less satisfying. But there's an interesting passage that I did want to go over that I did write in my other journal. This is it. And I know on this page it shows that I have been writing, but as I write, this is what happens. If you look at my fingers, it'll start like this, and then the fingers go like this, and I'm grabbing the pen like this, and I'm just, guys, writing is a constant struggle, and I hate it, and we don't know where to go from here, so I'm going to see a movement disorder specialist, and we'll see what happens, but I did want to go over this one. Carlotta looked stern. Then we should let our hearts and souls dictate our actions, Mr. Grimsby, not contracts. There are others who can judge us, maybe, for what we swore and didn't swear, but they aren't on Earth, if you see what I'm saying, Mr. Grimsby. So, our hearts and souls should be the ones that dictate our actions, not contracts. And if you remember, in The Little Mermaid film, Ariel signed away her contract with Ursula when she gave over her voice. And in that contract, if she wasn't able to win the prince over in 3 days, she'd be a prisoner. And then King Triton signed his name on that contract and traded his life for hers. So that was just another important passage to me. Did reading this book change me in any way? No, but the description of how Prince Eric wrote music and connected. So in the story, his character refers lyrics and refrains to rooms and shelves, made me think of how various composers are inspired to write music. Who would I like to share this book with? Well, my friend Sonia and I, we're both fans of The Little Mermaid. And it's a new take on an old classic. And I remember years ago when we were working together, we took a bicycle surrey at Lake Balboa, and we sang this parody of Part of Your World, which was a lot more feminine and dirty, and it was just really, really funny. I'd recommend this book. It's an interesting take, and I loved everything about it. The last one that I read for this year, I wanted to read at least a few more, but that didn't happen. So let's go to this one. Another book off the book challenge. A book set in the decade you were born. So I'm an 80s gal, and I read her book, Eleanor and Park. This is by author Rainbow Rowell, and I read it in 2 days. That's how good this book really was, but it's like every page was a page turner. Absolutely. Ooh. I give the cover a 3. It's a very simple illustration on the cover. Each character, you see from behind their heads, Eleanor is a redhead, Park has black hair, but they each are listening to headphones. I actually preferred the color page insert. Why I chose this book? Well, again, this is one of those books that I would not even considered until I applied it to the book task. And so I chose it because it's a book task on the reading challenge. Other books that I plan to read by this author. So I did get her book, Scattered Showers, which is mentioned in another book haul video that I got at the second Roman store in Hastings Ranch. The feelings this book evoked in me. This was kind of difficult. Almost, I don't want to say it was as difficult as the book I read, Things I Never Told You, which to me just, I had a hard time with that book and I will not read that book again. But this one, I said nostalgia and nightmares. It brought up feelings of being bullied, but nothing compared to Eleanor's life. We all go through, and this is what I wrote down, we all go through crap in our lives. And I find for myself, that reliving and talking about it is not cathartic. It actually brings up worse things. I don't know about that for anyone else. I did have a few favorite passages, but my favorite passages were actually the conversations between Eleanor and Park when they were doing comparisons and contrasts of comic books, because that's how their friendship started. That's a voice that arrives on a chariot drawn by dragons. So Eleanor is a very quiet girl, but she dresses loudly. And she's considered weird for that. Plus she has vibrant, curly, disheveled red hair, and it looks like she's a patchwork with no particular fashion sense. But when she speaks in her English class and she reads a poem, I guess it was something, and this is what the teacher had said. He's hoping that she would continue to read with that kind of bravado. At the end of the story, Eleanor says, "Life's a bastard." And Park replies, "Yes, but it's up to us not to lose this." At some point, they end up falling in love. It's a very contemporary, modern take on Romeo and Juliet, set in, I believe the story is set in Nebraska. But it's what these two go through is beyond, and it's remarkable. And they each struggle with their own inner demons and outside demons. Now, this is where it got interesting when they were talking about the comic books on X-Men. So Park says, "They're a metaphor for acceptance. They've been sworn to protect a world that hates and fears them." Eleanor replies, "The girls are stereotypically girly and passive. Half of them just think really hard, like that's their superpower." So I found that a very interesting passage, which kind of is what like Eleanor is all about. She would not, by her description, she would not really be considered a type of X-Men unless if she spoke her mind. That's what I got from the story. Did reading this book change me in any way? Let me just say, as a newbie to the published writing world, I want to be accurate when setting a book, when it comes to the setting of a book, but also to pay close attention to character complexity, dialogue, and their dialect. Who would I like to share this book with? My friend Jessie. I'm really grateful I got a chance to be with her yesterday. What would I hope for them to take away from it? Well, we are both from the 80s generation. When comparing our lives to these characters, a clash of cultures, we are, honestly, the two of us, we should count our lucky stars and our blessings every day, that we have people that really do care about us. and we have each other. Would I recommend this book? Absolutely. And the writing style and the message, I loved it. The reading experience, I didn't love it. I didn't think it was okay. I liked the reading experience, but the book really packed a whole punch, which now brings me to the books I didn't get to finish off the reading challenge. So of all the books that I finished, let me just count the ones that I did read that are highlighted. So according to this, I read 21 books off the reading challenge list, which means... All right, so let me just read the books that I didn't get to read that I meant to read off the reading challenge list for this year. The new list came out in December, and I just downloaded it. That one's a bit... I don't know. I don't like the layout of how it's done. We'll look into it. A book you meant to read in 2022, The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex Haro. I did read her book, The Once and Future Witches. A book by a first-time author, The Mountain Sang. A book with mythical creatures. I did have Myths of the Middle Ages. This book was so short, but I don't know. There was just something about it being almost too informative and too many contradictions, I guess. A book with a color in the title, The Virgin Blue by Tracy Chevalier. A romance with a fat lead, Get a Life, Chloe Brown. A book published the year you were born, so for me, it was The Color Purple. A book with a song lyric as its title. I had both of these books written down, so I had The Secret Chord and All the Single Ladies. I did end up checking out The Single Ladies again, but I didn't get to finish it. A book where the main character's name is in the title. So in this one, we had The Magic Strings of Frankie Presto by Mitch Albom. A book with a love triangle, Daughter of the Moon Goddess. A book that's been banned or challenged in any state in 2022, The Kite Runner. But there's also, I believe, Toni Morrison. A book written during NaNoWriMo. Erin Morgenstern packs almost too much in a story, and I couldn't finish The Night Circus. I started it, and I read it up until like April, but there was so much to take in. A book that takes place entirely in one day, Ulysses by James Joyce. A book that was self-published, The Celestine Prophecy. A book that started off as fan fiction. I put Point Pleasant. A book with a map, The Stowaway by Karen Hesse. I wanted to finish this book this year. A book with just text on the cover. I had Finishing the Hat by Stephen Sondheim. A book talk recommendation. I started A Court of Thorns and Roses. I didn't finish it. Now I need to read the entire series because I am hooked. A book you bought secondhand. This book I tried to get into at a certain point. I didn't get to read it, but it's called The Little Book of Luca. A book about a family. I chose The Light Between Oceans. I didn't read that. A historical fiction book. Sarah's Key by Tatiana DeRosnay? A book about divorce. I had two written down. I had The Divorce Colony and The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte. A book you think your best friend would like. I wanted to read this so badly this year. I just went through too many personal issues. That was Distilled Genius. A book you should have read in high school. I still haven't read Pride and Prejudice. A book you wish you could read again for the first time. So I wrote to him, but I didn't read the book again this year. Darlington's Fall. A book by an author with the same initials as you. This was kind of hard to find, and I just chose the first book that was off the list. And I'll have the title of the book listed below. A book that features two languages. This is A Little Princess by Frances Burnett. A book with alliteration in the title. I'm still reading Enjoy, Enjoy. And of course, the book that I still have yet to conquer, the longest book by pages, is The Tale of Genji. I did not get to read that one, but I did read all these other books on the back, including God Whispers and The Bridge to Forgiveness. I did read her book Amen. A few plays by Robert Schenken. Several books by Avi. a few more books by Brian Selznick, a few books by Whoopi Goldberg, and 2 others written by Scott Hamilton, and 1 book by Ocean Vuong. So, again, another year passes by, and again, I still have not completed the challenge. This is, I think, going on 6-7 years. So, on to the challenge for 2024. And once again, we're all praying for a better year. For me, clarification to answers unanswered, and I hope to manifest them. I'll see you guys in the next year.